we're in a spot right now where the final stretch of the story is happening. And God Valley, this flashback, is one of the last things in the story that is quintessential, you could argue. Let's say before the final war, let's say before we get the entire Void Century flashback, things of that sort, right? Before Monkey Jesus becomes Pirate King. And because God Valley is happening on Elbaf, that means that Elbaf itself probably ends, let's say, within 10 or 20 chapters after it's all said and done, maybe more potentially, fair enough, fine. But then after Elbaf, what's next? Is it going to be the final war? Is it going to be another island? Is it going to be, let's say we go to Laugh Tale immediately? Oda can end the story within like a 5 or 6 year window if he really wanted to. He could do this. It is possible. If he focuses on the story and the story alone, it is very possible. So knowing this, power scaling time. Okay, KingOfLightning, you don't think that Sanji and Zoro are at Admiral level right now? Correct. I've said before that there's still a ways to go for these guys to become Admiral. When can Sanji and when can Zoro be on that Admiral level? It is possible to where after Elbaf, this can happen. Where after Elbaf, Sanji and Zoro are now on par with at least Green Bull. And their bounties, let's say, skyrocket to the same tier as something like Loki, 2.5 and 2.6 billions, all right? So in my mind, it'd be like, okay, because I rate this person very, very highly, obviously, because you see right here. Hold on, wait. That's right. Trafalgar D. Votel Law. I think that Trafalgar D. Waterlaw is Admiral level. I do. And I think our law proved that in spades when he fought against Blackbeard. Mr. All Day, Every Day, 24/7, 365 days. Team Blackbeard. Knowing all that, is it possible that at the end of Elbaf, Zoro and Sanji can be on Law's level? The answer, I think, is yeah, I think that's very, very possible. I would still eke Kizaru over Zoro and Sanji come in Elbaf. Will I do the same thing for Fujitora and for Green Bull? It depends on what exactly is going on there for Sanji and Zoro's power-ups in the future. Because the thing here is this. We saw Wano Country what Oda did. Oda gave a cornucopia of buffs to the Monster Trio. Luffy, I think, got like he got 3 distinct power-ups. He had the Rio Haki, and then he actually skipped a step, and his does internal organ damage. So it's kind of like 1.5 or even 2 buffs in one. Then he got the Conqueror's Haki Infusion. Then he had the Gear 5 Awakening, and that one buff opens up a whole new paradigm of power for Monkey Jesus. Sanji got a few buffs, where Sanji got the Raid Suit, but then he lost the Raid Suit, so it was a nerf. But then in place of that, he had the German Body Awakening, where he got much stronger physical body, like up to the nth degree. Then he has regeneration factor, and he has an exoskeleton on top of all of that. And then also he got the Ifrit Jambe. So Sanji got quite a few buffs there. Then you have Roronoa Zoro, who got the Firefox style. He got that buff. Then he got Enma, and then from there we have the Conqueror's Haki Infusion. So Zoro, and potentially, real quick, potentially the Green Flames are a separate power thing as well, but Oda hasn't gone to that yet. Wano Country is the arc where the Straw Hats get the most buffs for the entire series of One Piece. Every arc, let's say in terms of gym memberships, which I do have, don't doubt me, every arc was like a Planet Fitness gym membership in terms of buffs. And its lobby is a Planet Fitness that doesn't have that dumb alarm, and they actually have some solid weights. A lot of weights, thank God. And the time skip is Planet Fitness, the Black Card membership. But Wano Country ain't even Planet Fitness. Wano Country is Equinox, my boys. So you're not paying $20 or $30 a month. No, you're paying $300+ a month for that membership. That is the quality of buffs we're talking about here to bring Wano Country to every other arc. Because here's the damn truth. Before Wano Country, there was no way on God's green earth that Zoro and Sanji were beating Cracker in a one-on-one fight. Cracker, yes, 3rd division commander of the Big Mom Pirates. You know why? Because Cracker was coasting on Gear 4 Luffy. Luffy was getting dunked on and snacked on by Cracker. There ain't no way Zoro and Sanji were beating Cracker before Wano Country. They needed Wano Country to go from pre-Yonko commander level, around like senior officer-ish levels, to high-end Yonko commander levels. That's jumping several tiers in one arc. So I'll say right now they're both stronger than King the Wildfire and Marco right now. And I would argue that they're actually on the same tier as Katakuri. I rate Katakuri really highly. That's just me. I rate Katakuri like a step above and beyond most of the First Division Emperor commanders in the story, with the exception of, obviously, Ben Beckman. So Oda has shown where he can, in an arc, give huge power creeps, not even power creeps, power lunges, power leaps for characters, main characters in arcs. And the same thing is possible. It's possible. Is it likely? But it's possible for Elbaf. We understand that at some point in the near future, Zoro is going to achieve a Black Blade. That could be happening in the very near future on Elbaf, on top of him starting to understand the true powers of utilizing his Conqueror's Haki. And also, whatever this green ember stuff is, if it is a different power, then Zoro could understand a lot more of that coming to Elbaf too. These fights against the Holy Knights are going to force a lot of not just raw power, but also unique ability functionality on the part of Zoro and Sanji, and of course Luffy as well. What we saw with Ameth and the Drobo Haki knot, we're gonna see Luffy do something comparable to that on Elbaf. Yes. We're gonna see, I think, Zoro and Sanji do things that are similar to, let's say, Gaban, at least. Whether it be through Conqueror's Haki, solely that, or other methods, we'll have to wait to find out. But I think that for sure, Sanji and Zoro are gonna do something similar to Gaban in this arc. It becomes very clear that Zoro can actually raise in level exponentially, because just by honing his Conqueror's Haki, that's gonna be a huge boon, and then other things that Oda has left for his powers to bloom could be happening in this arc as well. The same goes for Sanji. There is that sort of mystery now about Sanji having Conqueror's Haki or not, where Gaban says something to Sanji, but Oda kind of cuts that off. And for Sanji, the baseline, his physique is already like mutating. We're at the beginning of this arc when they destroy that giant net that Roto fired at them. When they were inside Lego Mania, we saw Sanji use Ifrit Jambe in chapter 1129 with his regular eyebrow orientation. The power of love was not active. So if he can use Ifrit Jambe without the swirls, what does that mean about when the swirls are on? His physique is being amplified and getting stronger and stronger by the day, which means what? Hotter temperatures. Sanji's already brutally hot flames can continue to develop and get even hotter and hotter as the story goes on. It's gonna go double and triple if there's even more unique mysteries about Sanji's physique that Oda hasn't dove into just yet. And keep in mind, very important here, that both Zoro and Sanji have affinities for Haki. Even when Zoro does enhance his Conqueror's Haki, keep in mind that his affinity is armament Haki. And whatever mystery is going on with Sanji, when Oda reveals that, keep in mind that his affinity for Haki is observation Haki. Like the pedal of Gaban, be able to like sense things that are happening that no one else can sense. Sanji will be able to do that in the future, whether it be in the near future or in the distant future. Again, Oda can do a lot here. If we go back to the past abilities that we've seen so far in the story for both these Haki types, it's very possible where in this arc, Sanji actually starts to activate his future sight in the same vein as someone like Katakuri. Zoro can get a sense of the Rio Haki that bypasses natural defenses and does internal damage, the one that Luffy mastered from Hyogoro. Given their affinities for Haki, this is very possible, and it could be happening again in this arc. They could be stronger than old Rayleigh and old Gaban by the end of Elbaf. If we're near the end of the series, like we're really close in the story, and we know that Luffy's crew is going to succeed where every other crew has failed. If we only have a few arcs left, that means that within the next, after Elbaf, within the next 2 to 3, well, maybe 4. Yeah, why not? I mean, you could argue there's actually a chance Oda does like 7 arcs. There is room for that too if you really wanted to, but then we end in 15 years. I digress. Zoro and Sanji, relatively soon, are going to be stronger than Gaban and Rayleigh in their primes. Not their old age, in their primes. Prime era Rayleigh will be weaker than peak EOS Zoro, for sure. And the same thing goes for Prime era Gaban and EOS Sanji, absolutely. And that does not necessarily mean that's going to happen at the exact end of series. It could happen much earlier than that, because end of series Zoro and end of series Sanji could be 2 or potentially even 3 tiers stronger than Prime Rayleigh and Prime Gabon. Though I don't think that's likely. I'll say it again. I do not think that's likely. No. So I think the pathway is there where we do see some massive Haki bloomage, some ability realizations on the part of Zoro and Sanji in the very near future. And one last thing, statistically speaking, you may be wondering, okay, how is it that Sanji and Zoro are not at Admiral level just yet? Actually, statistically speaking, I don't want to get to it. I really don't, because I think it was very clear just seeing how Luffy and Zoro operated against Rob Lucci. I think that and that alone was enough to tell you. Luffy here, I think, is very close to Kizaru in terms of power, and he is just decimating Lucci. The same thing cannot be said for Zoro. Not even close. And the fact that we found out recently that Zoro had no idea, he had no idea that he had to conquer Haki, that makes it only all the more apparent, very obviously. Yeah, Zoro is definitely not on Admiral level. Sanji and Zoro to me are always parallel, without question. Again, I told you before, in the same vein as Dory and Brogy, I can't tell you who's stronger. In the same vein as Inu and Neko, I can't tell you who's stronger. Same thing here. So if Zoro can't decimate Rob Lucci, neither can Sanji. He can beat Rob Lucci, but he's not able to do the same thing as like what Luffy could do. Hell no. Hell no. But let me know your stance on the subject matter at hand. If you enjoy your boys' video content, give a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, click on that bell to join the notification squad. I'm gonna catch you guys and gals on the flip side.